I know what you're thinking. No, I certainly haven't dismantled the Starship Enterprise. This is a project that has been in the works for the last 24 months. The first 6 months, the video was inconclusive, so I deleted it and started again. Cables, a very contentious topic in this community. Two very large audiences, the objective and the subjective. The objective states cables, core don't make a difference. The only difference comes from the way the cable is put together and whether that cable has certain aspects about it, like capacitors, active noise cancellation, etc. The subjective side states it has a tendency to make or break your system, overinflate certain aspects of this notion of the hobby, and the war has been raging for a while. But there is a third story here, a different perspective to be told. Should you invest in cables? When should you invest in cables? Where is the cutoff point for cables? Should you care? This is not a review. This is a 2-year analysis and my perspective on the topic through 50 amplifiers testing, over 30 DAC testing, and a variety of environments versus the stuff that comes in the box. We have digital cables ranging from $30 to this, $8,000 and everything in between. We have interconnects ranging from $50 up to $50,000. Hi, I'm Koji. Welcome to the summit of summit tier channels for the crazy side of hi-fi in this ridiculous hobby. Let's begin. We need to address the background of this documentary / testing / analysis. Like I mentioned, originally I used these and have been using these types of cables for the last 20 years. This is a power cable that comes in the box of your amplifiers, headphones, if it's an all-in-one system, speakers, this one right here. You are very familiar with this, I'm sure, a kettle cable. And to connect the amplifier to the DAC, these ones. Not a sponsor. There aren't any sponsors on this video. This video isn't about you buying these cables on the table. This video is about telling you what the process has been and if it's worth your time, investment, or is something you can forget about. This is a Mogami cable from Amazon. A pair will set you back $50. It does the same job as this one at $50,000. Absolutely no difference in its functionality, right? We're going to address everything in between. So, for the last 20 years, I've been using that. It's been working fine, no issues. In fact, I actually have those kettle cables I just showed you that are 15 years old and they're still working fine. When I saw these ridiculous power cables from IFI, the first thing that attracted to me was these are active power cables. Filtering, making sure it's surge protecting your systems, looks beautiful. Probably some of the best comments I think I get is usually, what the hell are those? And that's these, the power cables versus the stock. Okay, fine, but who cares about looks after the first day, right? We're here to listen to music. So, testing over and over and over again on every system that has come through CMA during the review, though I've never really mentioned it in the review itself. Going from stock power cable, basic interconnect, to these ones here. Ranging from DubbleHealix Chaperon 4s, which are the staple of the channel and have been used from day one for the last 24 months, to some of these latest ones. Something like this beautiful Asian market silver cable that will set you back $10,000. Okay, the numbers mean absolutely nothing, they're arbitrary, it's the performance that matters. You can be damn sure I have done my best to eliminate placebo. I have tried to eliminate as many variables as physically possible, even going room to room in the house to test. Because I mentioned the first part of the review analysis, though this is not a review, and I changed my mind on that topic. It's just a discussion the way I see it. This will be the first and last video on cables on CMA like this. exclusively concentrating on this area. Though personally and subjectively, I feel as though it should be discussed a lot more without all the swearing and arguing. Be adults, guys, if you're going to discuss this in the comment section in regards to your experiences. At CMA, we are only here for educational purposes and for showcasing the boundaries of hi-fi. I am not interested in whether you want to buy this or you should buy this. Those are decisions you will make yourself. It has nothing to do with me. I am only here to show you if it makes a difference or not, and when to be smart about it, and when to step back. The first question we're going to answer during this 24 months testing is, should you care about cables? And the answer is yes, within reason. You should care about cables because I did state I have been using the stock cables for the last 20 years without any issues, including studio grade equipment like my monitors that are used for mixing and mastering behind me. The Prodigy album Fat of the Land was actually mixed on those speakers. Just to give you an idea of the caliber they are. Prodigy loves using Mackie HR824 originals from 1997, and I love it too. And they've been on my desk for 20 years as of April this year. There are better speakers, but you have to spend over 10K for it, I'm sure. You should consider upgrading your cables when your headphones, speakers, amplifier, DAC, and pre, and your source gear is in place. But once you invest in your cables, I highly recommend finding one that is good enough, built well enough, synergized enough to last you decades so that you will never ever have to touch it again. Let it be like the electricity that runs to make the systems work, and then forget about it. That's my first advice. My second advice is, if you are in the category of, for example, topping A90 all the way up to the Bliss and Awe, I don't think you should consider anything beyond a nice Mugami cable or other ones. I'm not really familiar with more than a handful of this company because they all pop up. There's millions of them on Amazon, on eBay, etc. Unless you really want a beautiful looking cable, looks wise, that doesn't break the bank for those systems because you're proud of it and you like to display it on your desk, right? That's the only scenario and the only entry point to your system you should consider getting cables involved, because they will set you back, especially if you go down the custom route. That's for your interconnects. That's for your digital data USB cables. But I highly recommend spending 7,000, like on a Burham stack or Hypsos and Wandler. It's a lot of money. A nice used car can be had for that. I do recommend really considering the protection for your system. Surge protection to eliminate hazardous situations that happens in day-to-day life. Thunder, lightning, these kinds of things could destroy your system. So it's better to spend a little more for your power cables and your protection for your power strip. I think it's quite important. Let's talk about the logical side of things. Get protection in place first. Get built-to-measure cables that are nicely designed so it doesn't break every other week when you connect and disconnect, which shouldn't set you back too much. Don't worry about sound quality and synergizing and stuff at the levels of A90, SGGD1 and all the rest of it up to, I would say, Awe and Hypsos, because that's when you start investing real money. 3,000 in your amplifier and your power supply, 3,000 for a Wandler. It's an expensive system. Please protect your systems. All right, you're in the category of HM1, of Levante, of Poseidon, of Red October, WA33 Elite. You are in the category of 465. You are in the category of Red October XL. And by the way, all of these reviews are on the channel. They're either out now, or they're on Patreon, or they're being edited. We're talking serious mortgage money. We are talking serious resolvability. We are talking where every percentage of performance matters because you are paying for the last 5 to 10%. You are eking out every bit of performance, and that is where this video comes in. Let me get some notions out of the way that is rife in the community. Do I believe cables make a difference? Yes and no. I have a theory. Please bear with me. I don't believe any USB cable, interconnect, or speaker cable gives you anything more than what your system originally is capable of. It will not add anything extra, like not being able to add extra data to your upsampling files that wasn't there in the first place. I don't believe for 1 second cables add anything more than the fullest capability of your drivers, amplification and DAC. But this does not mean in my 24 months of testing over 100 items that it doesn't make a difference to the system itself. And here are the reasons why that I truly believe. That's why I'm putting it on video now for you. And those are, I believe in degradation. From the moment when analog is broken down to digital, to your FLAC file, all the way down to the reproduction of that at the end on your transducers, you are losing and degrading the signal through the chain of the system. And what we are trying to do from end to end is preserve what is there from the start. What is the main pure source? Well, the pure source is the singer right there in front of you singing to you in a room. The guitarist right there, the bassist right there, the drummer right there, you sitting in the first row having the best engineers in the world, the best treatment in the world, the best venue in the world put together, and you listening to them live. From the moment that gets recorded and picked up by microphones and placed into the digital domain, you are starting the degradation process. Then it comes to the playback of that file. Then it comes to the transport of that file through the USB cable into your DAC or reclocker or whatever you have before your DAC, to your pre, to your amplifier, to your speakers. Until your ears pick it up, you are degrading a bit at a time somewhere along the way from the main vocalist, drummer, guitarist, singer. It's inevitable. We are trying to preserve as much as we can. That's where all of this stuff comes in. In this 24 months of testing, from the basic cables over there to this insanity over here on the table, we are trying to eliminate everything else that is happening. So let's start with power. The most important aspect of this, powering your machines, your amplifiers and your DACs. There are a variety of ways of doing this. From the wall to this is this Super Quasar cable here. This absolute monstrosity. This is an active cable. And in my testing, for my environment, I live in a house, I have properties on one side and properties above. They're using washing machines and everything else. And the best indicator I have of my surrounding effective noises is the hollow cyan 2, which whenever somebody turns on a washing machine or something, it starts going and it gets louder and louder and louder until you can hear it across the house. And then it resides and it's like now, dead silent. But to be fair, I think it's switched off right now. That hum, due to the transformer in there, this was prevalent in the May and the Spring 3 as well. It's an O-type transformer from memory, hand-wound, silver wires, blah, 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 will hum unlike anything else. It's the perfect detector. But ever since I implemented the Supernova and Super Quasar cables, that went away. So that was one elimination for me in this house. I don't think I have great electricity, though when a couple of other YouTubers came here, we tested with some of those plugs you plug into the wall to get distortion and stuff. It looked like it was pretty clean, but we couldn't do all the kinds of testing. We only did one. So that's eliminating one problem. The other elimination is I don't have to worry. The Super Quasar cable, which looks absolutely gorgeous by the way, there is a touch of beauty in here. The active cable is surge proof for your systems in case of a spike. Sometimes these can happen and they can destroy your systems. In the UK, we're pretty lucky. US, I believe, and some other areas have a lot more problems. I've had people in my chat, in a private Telegram chat. You can join that for £5 a month on Patreon, get early reviews, my impressions, etc. All the information will be down below. Have had their systems die because of surges. Protection 1, power cable. Active noise cancellation. What does this mean? Well, from what I understand, it counteracts whatever noise is coming down the pipe like a noise cancelling headphone where it does the opposite to what's actually happening and silences. And it works. Using the stock cable versus the basic Nova cable, here we have this one, versus, for example, their latest Super Quasar cable, which I've been testing on the Levante, that is a power amp. I mean, look at the gauge of this thing. This thing's insane. So that is a 120 watt Class AB amplifier, 30 watts of pure Class A, and you're passing electricity through it. There are capacitors in there. Those take a while to charge up. When you connect this cable for the first time, your system will sound anemic, sharp, lack of bass, and depressing. But with time, about an hour, it gets a black background. There's no longer that sharpness, like a 6K spike burrowing its way into your brain and wiggling around and making your brain dance the fantango, goes away. And I think the reason why I've been using these Nova cables for the last 24 months and it's not been eliminated is because, no, I don't think it makes my system better. But it makes my system consistent to the best of its ability so that it sounds the same day to day. Have you ever had that experience where the night before your system has sounded so good, the following day you sit down at your desk and you want to have the same experience and you go, okay, dynamics is a bit poor. Why isn't it hitting a little bit as hard as yesterday? Why is my head hurting and do I want to take the headphones off? I've had no such things. My system has always sounded the same over the last 24 months. Except when I change variables. So therefore, the power cables, I mean, it provides the juice to your systems, is quite important to get the best out of your system it's capable of. No, it's not going to do anything extra. No, it's not going to make your system sound any more dynamic than it's what it's capable of originally. No, it's not going to give the blacker background any more than your system can provide originally. I've put this ridiculous Super Quasar cable on the Topping A90. Absolutely no difference. Nothing. Nada. Zero. Zilch. But on the Levante, oh yes. It goes from a sharp, thin-sounding system to a tonally dense, hard-hitting, black background, high dynamic, clean-sounding, sweet as honey system. And it's still roughly a 1% change. But a 1% change for a €22,000 amplifier is a big deal. You are squeezing the last bit of performance out of your systems. And on another aspect, it looks cool as fudge. No idea what this metal thing is for, but it looks cool as hell. The cable looks pretty, and you gotta actually use some kind of support because they weigh 3 kilograms. Full specification for the Super Quasar cable scrolling down the screen here. And the change has been drastic enough on those Summit tier reference systems at CMA. I have to now upgrade my Nova cables, which is what I've been using for the last 24 months, because it sounds a little bit better on those beefier amps. But it's only the 1%. It's only what the amplifier is capable of originally. The Super Nova cable, this one, is basically the first generation of the Super Quasar cable here for the power cables. I always found it a little sharp, a little spicy. I don't know, there was just a bit of energy there that permeated the Poseidon, if you can believe it. It permeates the Epsilon DAC. It even permeated the Hollow Audio May. So I'll just use the basic one. The cheaper one sounded nicer to me. The Nova cable, it was sweet. Your power cables, the powerfuler your amp, I think the more important it seems to have demonstrated. But if you're spending 22,000, you owe it to yourself and to your system to spend 5% of that on the things that actually give it life, which is basically making it work. Don't use the cable in the box, because there is a difference in my testing. But if that's important enough to you, or you'd rather spend that money on a pair of headphones, the decision is yours. I am only here to tell you my experiences, not what to buy. I don't care which of these ones, or if any, will make your systems better, but I care to show you and to demonstrate cables do make a difference where the power is concerned in this section of the analysis. It makes a difference. Not on the lower end stuff, not on the cheaper component power supply, switch mode power supply stuff, but on the high grade, highly resolving systems such as AIC10 Riviera, Poseidon as a DAC, even Hollow Audio May was not really that susceptible to change. That's a $6,000 DAC, by the way. It's more apparent on the higher end systems. So I wouldn't worry. too much. Let's talk about the digital side of things before we jump onto the interconnects and stuff, because this is what carries the data to your system. This USB cable is $8,000. I use an Audio Carbon, now the Aperio cable, for the last year. The Audio Carbon for the 18 months prior to this. I've been testing this $8,000 cable plus a bunch of others there in $3,000, $2,000 and £800 categories. What have been the results? There is a difference between the AudioQwest Carbon, AudioQwest Diamond and the Warwick Acoustics Aperio USB cable, which has been measured to spec from the labs in the UK. £600. For an Aperio, which is 33,500, it's not even 5%. Yes, it makes a difference. It's not as sharp, it's cleaner, there's no electrical noise. It works very well. It's my staple of the channel. It's what I use with every system, even if I'm testing a Cyan 2. What if you go to the 8,000 category? There's absolutely no difference I can discern, hand on heart. There is a difference from the lower category to a certain point. For me, it has been the AudioQwest Diamond or the Aperio cable at a 16th of the price of this $8,000 USB cable. This performs identically in my 180K reference system that's here. Thank you to gpoint for the Poseidon and for the Levante during testing. It's the highest system we've had here at CMA. There is no difference between this $8,000 cable and the £600 Aperio Warwick Acoustics review here cable at all. I've tried it with the Ideon server, which is £20,000. I've tried it with a Rockner Wavelight server behind me, $5,000. I've tried it with the Hollow Red. I have tried it with the Poseidon DAC, Epsilon DAC, Wavedream Signature. Beyond a certain point of USB digital cables, it makes no difference. So, is the USB cable making a difference to the system? Is it the cable itself? I think the design of the cable, how it's put together, the shielding, USB is very noisy, makes a difference. Yes, but up to a certain point. And I believe all it's doing is cleaning up. I don't think the cable adds any beneficial components to your system other than fixing the problems that are along the way. I don't think it adds more. Just like the interconnects I mentioned earlier, I don't think it makes the DAC any more dynamic, any more resolving, any cleaner, any better. It's only showing you what your DAC is capable of in its natural state without any outside interference. So, get a USB cable that's measured to spec when you have a high-end system. Don't spend crazy amounts of money beyond a certain point. I mean, if your DAC is worth 24,000 euros like a Poseidon, or Wavedream Signature at 18,000, or a Lena, you owe it to your system to buy the best measured spec cable. Don't buy a $30 cable from Amazon, but don't spend 8,000 either. I don't care. I am extremely fortunate having these huge amounts of cables here for testing, but I have no horse in the race. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to get any commission by saying these things. I don't think you should buy these types of cables up to a certain point, because there is diminishing returns on like the power cables, in my opinion, and I think there is a actual end point to digital cables like USB cables. What has been your experience? Tell me in the comment section. Let's move over to interconnects. This is the cable I showed at the beginning of the video. This is the Mogami one, I think this one. Nice connectors, it's built okay. As you can see, the solder point is all right. It's got this rubber thing, it's fine. I use that with the HA2A and IDAC. I use that with the Ferrum stack, the OR, the Hypsos and the Wandler. It works fine. What is the problem with it when you actually go up and come back down? That sounds a little sharp, sounds a little crunchy, sounds a bit meh. But if you have only ever heard that, you think it's going to sound great. It comes down to this. The higher you go up, the higher the diminishing returns, but the bigger the fall when you go back down. It's far less noticeable climbing up than climbing back down. So, on the OR stack, from a DubbleHealix Chaperon 4, which is about $4,000, I believe, something like that, there is a little difference, of course, with the OR and Wandler. Wandler's quite resolving, but it's enough that you would never consider it because it's more expensive than the DAC itself. So no, you buy a nice, balanced, well-measured cable like that one. Set you back $50, please don't worry about it at all. But if you are in the systems we're talking about, Poseidon, Signature, etc. Let's talk about these crazy high-end cables. This silver one, for example, I mean, let's look at the design first. Look at this crazy thing. This is absolutely gorgeous. So you know the cable's gonna last a long time. It looks beautiful. It looks like jewelry. But like measurements, do you guys look at things or do you wanna listen to music? This is a pure silver cable. Silver is not cheap. 10,000 though. Even if your system's worth 50, would you spend 10,000 on just interconnects? I don't think so, but it makes a difference. It's the warmest sounding silver cable I've ever heard. I can actually categorize the sound characteristics in my head. It changes the tonal balance of the system. It sounds like a Lampizator DAC house sound when I use it with a reference system. Levante, Ideon Epsilon, HM1, and Poseidon. It's warmer. It's gentle. It's the same sounding system, but it lays everything back and it makes a difference. It's subtle. If you can't discern or hear certain types of dynamics and tonality change, or if you have a big dip in a certain part of your frequency response of your hearing at the eardrum, you will not detect the impact. You will not detect the difference. And for me, it's everything around the instruments that comes to life, like the air, the ambience, the instruments bouncing off the stage, the mic pickups. But it's subtle. For 10,000, it's 1%. On a 180K system, you want that 1%. It's a big deal. On a hollow stack at 13,000, you shouldn't even be considering this stuff. Most importantly, this is for people who want to push boundaries. This is for people who have absolutely no limitations in their wallet. And this is for people who want the best of the best, but synergy at that level is extremely important. Okay, I just mentioned it makes your system slightly warmer, slightly more analog sounding, better dynamics than using like the Chaperon 4s or using the Mugamis, which I've tried on it. I've got the longer versions of those. It sounds more refined, more articulate, and it's all of it, every part of it is on the outer skirts of the music itself. So if you're passive listening, you might even miss it. Finally, these are the $50,000 pair interconnects. Wrapped in leather, looks amazing. This is part of the Asian market cable for systems that are worth £1 million, etc. I never believed we'd actually get an opportunity to test these things, and I stopped giving a flying fudge within the first few days. But I did go back down from this $50,000 cable to the $50 cable, and my system collapsed. It shows the best ability of Levante, Poseidon, and Epsilon. It's consistent. It sounds identical day to day. It's something that completely gets out of the way of the system. It adds no characteristics, unlike this silver one. This silver one really does change the tonality of your system. It makes Ideon Epsilon, which is far more dynamic and punchy than Wavedream's Signature, a lot softer and laid back, closer to Poseidon, which was shocking. Yes, it's still the 1%, 1.5%. If I'm being generous, 2%. But it makes a difference. But when you go back to this, it gives you the best ability of the Ideon Epsilon, what it's capable of. No, it doesn't add anything extra, and I have to keep repeating this point. It doesn't add a magic sauce. It just opens what the DAC is capable of at its best, which is punchy, dynamic, huge stage, doesn't affect the tonality of the DAC, the house sound. It doesn't affect anything, and it has no sharpness, no peaks, no electrical noise being carried over from your DAC to your amplifier. It's nicely shielded. It's horribly non-ergonomic. You will have to have this much free behind your system. I recommend this much so that the cable doesn't bend. There are 3 cables carried over here, positive, negative, and ground, I'm pretty sure. And each gauge is probably thicker than most of the interconnects we have here. And it doesn't sound the same, again, when you first plug it in. It's shrill, cold sounding, it's a bit peaky, it hurts your head, and you look at it and you go, who would pay for such a thing? There are capacitors and stuff in there, I'm sure. The resistance is very high on this, I'm sure. There is volume change. So once it settles in, give it a couple of hours. All of the best ability of your amp and your DAC shines through. Do I wish I could afford it? Would I have it in my system? Yes, I would. But if only I was a multi-millionaire, right? This is designed for $1 million systems in a 2-channel room. This is not designed for that hi-fi stuff. Even Levante and Poseidon and Epsilon are 2-channel systems, but we're pushing the boundaries of hi-fi. So that's power cables, interconnects, and digital cables. That's been my experience. So conclusion. I think cables personally do make a difference, and the difference they make is higher in the highest end systems versus the mid-tier, and absolutely no difference in the lower categories. I think you should set aside 5% of your budget for your cables and your power cables and your security of your systems, especially something like this. This is the IFI Power Station. I've compared this to the Audioqwest Niagara 5000, and I preferred this for power amps and amplifiers because I felt as though the Niagara 5000 at 10 times the price, really limited dynamic range on amplifiers. This sounds a bit more punchy. Tonality is more clear, clean. I don't know. The Niagara 5000 added some characteristics. It was sticky sounding. It's just a bit dark and chocolatey, and it really changed the tonality of the system. That's Aperio, that's HM1, that's AIC10. It changed all of them. You could immediately tell there was something different. This doesn't. So I used to use this power station. Let's do a quick tour. So it has 6 sockets. Each one is specifically isolated. There is surge protection, active noise cancellation, and it doesn't really break the bank for systems costing 50, 60K. Niagara 5000 and above does. Some of them go up to 20K. And honestly, with the synergy of your system, some of them don't even sound that good. So it's not the money, it's what works. And this protects it. I've had no problems for 24 months. Absolutely none at all. And I always go back to it. And I've got some basic audio kind of grade strips underneath the marble table here, about £50. They do okay. I use that for 5 years. Absolutely no issue. This sounds cleaner, blacker background, more dynamic, and no, it doesn't add those aspects to my systems that doesn't have it already. Unleashes what your system's capable of, and I like it for the protection more than anything else. I like it for the consistency of my system, sounding the same from day to day. As a reviewer, you want as much consistency as possible, and that's the reason why I invest in these types of cables. Otherwise, I really wouldn't give a flying fudge. I need my systems to be identical every day, and they have been ever since I've implemented the Chaperon 4s from DubbleHealix, my own Nova cables, which are the lowest category, but the Super Quasars might have to be updated later for me for my power amps and stuff, because it did make a difference in my testing. And these power strips, I have 2 of them, one under the everyday desk and one under the reference system. I feel confident that my system's protected, and that's quite important to me, and my system sounds the same day to day. So, in conclusion, do cables matter and make a difference? I think cables matter for your systems. I think there is a cutoff point, and I truly believe that you don't need to spend crazy money to have amazing performance on your systems. I believe it's a 1% change maximum, and I believe the 1% is far more advantageous and necessary for your summit tier equipment than your lower ones, and I think it's the last aspect of your system you should consider. But when you do consider it, buy things that will last you years so you never ever have to touch it again. And most importantly, I believe the misunderstanding and miscommunication about cables in the community is the fact that people say it makes your system better, and this is I wholeheartedly disagree with. I believe cables and power cables and conditioners sometimes give you the best of your system that it's already capable of without adding anything extra to it, because it just limits the degradation we talked about at the beginning of the video. I hope this video has been useful to you. I hope it gives you a rough guide without any urgency to buy things, urgency to support companies that do this stuff, and opens your mind to the question, could my system actually be performing at its full capability that it's capable of? Your environment matters. I don't think these cables will sound the same in somebody else's house running different types of electricity through their system with different wiring, etc. My property is 100 years old, and that's the problem. Testing cables is possible. I just think there are too many variables, sadly. And I believe the conversation has been convoluted, sadly, because I don't think they add anything extra. They just give you what your system is capable of. let me know what your experience has been in the comment section in regards to this. It's been quite an eye-opener, and I'd like to thank you guys for coming along this journey with me. This was a very long process review. If you enjoy reviews such as these, and if you'd like to consider supporting Convince Me Audio, consider joining Patreon, where you get early reviews before anyone else, you get access to the private Telegram chat, and you get to talk to me in person about your systems, building systems, equipment that's just come in for review, etc. If not, your like, your share, and a comment down below is all I require from you. Please think logically about your systems. Please make up your own mind about your systems. Please don't follow the sheep and follow the trend. Use your own ears, because some people might have worse hearing than you or better hearing than you, and you're not going to be able to use their ears to listen to your own equipment. When you close your eyes at night, it's only you and the music that matters. The equipment, it's just a tool. It means nothing. But music is life. Peace.